Well, good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. And it's a Broker University webinar, and we're thrilled that you're here. I'm Callie Waterhouse with the Arizona Association of Realtors, and we're proud to bring you these free monthly webinars designed exclusively for Arizona Realtors. Today's webinar features Raejean Christopher, and Raejean is an inspiring coach who consistently helps real estate clients to exceed their goals. As a matter of fact, Raejean has been in real estate since about 1984, 1987, working with custom home builders, and has been in real estate ever since.
I have, yes.
Wow. Our presentation today will be about 30 to 40 minutes, followed by Q&A at the end. If you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to write them in the question box, and we'll get to them as soon as we possibly can. As always, today's webinar has been recorded and will be available on our website at aaronline.com. And I want to go back for just a moment, Raejean.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
We're going to be talking about using the DISC profile for real estate teams. But I have had quite a few emails from people asking me, why the DISC?
Why the DISC? Well, I can just share with you my experience, and honestly, it was life-changing. And it started back in 1995 at a conference. It was a Howard Britton conference, a Star Power conference in Chicago. It was my first exposure to the DISC. And at that time, I was really young, early 20s, super high I. And my boss was older than me, and she was a super high D, off the chart. And if you've ever worked with a high D, or maybe you are a high D, you know that they practice something called seagull management, where they fly in and fly out. I hope you heard that sound effect. That is seagull management. And she would do that. Of course, I got to the office earlier than her, and she'd come in and she'd slam all these files on my desk, because back in the day we used files and paper. And she'd give me she'd bark a few orders, and then she'd fly out. And I would be sitting there with a quivering lip thinking, oh my gosh, she doesn't like me. And then on the flip side, every time I got an idea that I was so excited about, I would run into her office, interrupt her, sit down in her chair, and just chat with her about it, until the point that we secretly wanted to kill each other. And fast forward 17 years later, she and I and her husband, we built an amazing team. And some of the people that I hired back then are still on that team, 20 years later. And I just really believe in it. It changed our entire relationship. And it changes retention issues. It changes how you lead people so that they can exceed their goals. It's very important.
Very important. So what I want you to hear, folks, is the fact that we all work differently. And we all have different things that we're motivated by, or inspired by, or crushed by. And so today we're going to be talking about having the right people on the team doing things that they excel at, things that are in their circle of genius, or things that really bring out their passion.
Yes, absolutely. And you do all of that just by understanding them just a little bit differently. So you might hear me call it DISC instead of DISC, but it's the same thing. And we are going to talk a lot today about team members, but I'll tell you, the best thing that you can get from the next 45 minutes is just a really clear picture of your own behavior, and how, if you can make a small change, you can get better results with those on your team. It will also help you identify if you have the right people in the right roles, and it may help you understand why some individuals might be struggling in their current role. Using DISC will absolutely increase your leadership skills immediately. And we not only lead our team, but we lead our clients too, right? So this is so important for our business. We have to modify our tactics depending on who we're talking to. We can't have a one-size-fits-all for all of our team members and all of our clients. And it's exactly the same when we're working with lenders, inspectors, cooperating agents, and I'll tell you, even your family. It's really easy, and I promise you, you will be able to use this information immediately after the webinar. And all you need to take notes is the sheet that was uploaded, or just take a piece of paper, separate it into 4 quadrants, and put a D in the upper left-hand corner, an I in the upper right-hand corner, an S in the lower right, and a C in the lower left quadrant. Ready? So let's get started. And I guess I should start out by introducing you to Dr. William Martson. He is the man who invented the first functional lie detector test. He was a lawyer, a psychologist, and he created the DISC model for emotions and behavior. And as a side note, what I find really interesting, he also created the Wonder Woman comic strip.
Oh, wow.
I know. So here we go. We're going to take some notes as I paint a picture of each quadrant for you. I'll point out the pros and cons for the different roles on a team. And please understand, as I go through each of these, there absolutely is no such thing as a good or a bad personality style. I want to make that really clear. It's a little hard for me. I don't want to pigeonhole anybody into any particular role. I've seen people in all 4 quadrants be successful in all the roles. It's just that sometimes they're more of the exception than the rule. Does that make sense, Callie?
Makes sense.
Okay. So we are who we are, and that's okay. And it's the understanding of each other and what we naturally bring to the team that's going to produce respect and admiration for everybody. And the better we know our own behavior, the more consistent we can be in our interpersonal and our supervisory relationships. So the first one is D. And D stands for dominance. High Ds are direct, they're demanding, they really dislike inaction, they're competitive, they're very results driven, and they make quick decisions based on logic. High Ds are very independent bottom line people. They are more formal in business, and they can come off as cold and uncaring, but make no mistake, they care a lot. It's just that they really care about results and achievement. When we know what someone wants and we know what someone fears and we avoid that, we can really win with them. And so what the high D wants is results. And they fear being taken advantage of. They might ask you a lot of what questions, Callie, like, what can you do for me? What results have you gotten? What am I going to net? The high D prefers maximum freedom in their role. They have a low tolerance for feelings, attitudes, and advice. They have the ability to work quickly and impressively alone. So I want everybody just to take a second. I want you to identify somebody in your mind that you know right now, and you're going to know who is the high D in your life. You can think of each one of the quadrants as having a motto, and for the high D, it's winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. So keep that in mind. If you're a high D and your team member is a high D, you're both going to want to win. So you're going to have to decide which roles would you consider hiring a high D and which ones would you say no. So let's keep going before we decide that though. Each one of the quadrants is going to show you one emotion first. And guess what that is with the high D? Any guess, Callie? No? Okay, well, I'm going to tell you. Anger. They're going to show you anger. They're going to blow up. But it's interesting. High Ds are also very forgiving. I'm telling you, you're looking like you don't believe me, but they are forgiving because ask yourself, once something has been addressed, they move on, don't they?
Yes.
They do. And I love that about high Ds. There's many, many things I admire about high Ds. I usually align myself with high Ds. You'll always know where you stand with a high D. And if you do have a high D on your team, or maybe they're an agent in your brokerage, you're going to be able to be very direct with them. And they're going to appreciate it if you just lay it out for them, which is something I do like that. So which rules are right for the high D? Well, before we discuss this part of the presentation, I want to stop and I want to take a moment to mention that about 80% of us have 2 high DISC types and 2 low DISC types. For instance, my I and my D are both well above the midline, and my S and my C are below the midline. So I and D above, S and C are below for me. If you took the assessment and you look at your graph, you can think of the midline of the graph as the energy line. Anything above that means you're going to see energy, or you're going to see traits from those quadrants. My I is the highest, so I'm considered a high I, but it's important to know that my D is not much lower than my I, and that means you're going to see traits from both. Only about 5% of people are high in only one quadrant. About 15% of people have 2 secondary traits that influence their behavior, meaning 3 of the D, I, S, or C quadrants are above the midline. Whenever I'm interviewing a candidate, I use their disc assessment to determine the questions I'm going to ask, especially if they are high in 2 or 3 quadrants. I really need to determine, which quadrant are they going to lead from. So, and it's interesting, it can be different from just a normal day. A normal day, I'm going to lead from my I. I'm going to be chatty, I'm going to be happy, but when the stuff hits the fan, guess what I lead from? I lead from my D. Yes, I do. And so anybody who would be hiring me for the team needs to be aware of that to make sure that it fits for the role. So with that being said, the DISC assessment should only be a part of the information you use to qualify a candidate. Questions and getting their life story is so critical to validating the assessment. Okay, so let's get back to the roles that are right for the high D. There are several roles that I think they would excel and love. The first is the team leader or the rainmaker. Most likely a large number of the people on the webinar today are high Ds, honestly. High Ds like to be in charge. They like to call the shots and do things their way. They have absolutely no problem taking risks. They think big, and they're just natural visionaries, which is very important for running a team or a business. High Ds can also make great listing agents because they're not afraid to tell the seller what they need to hear to get the house sold. You see what I put on there? Hey, Mrs. Seller, if I can smell it, I can't sell it. Now, that is not a script I recommend, but they have no problem doing that. And because the high Ds don't have a lot of patience with people who are slow to make decisions, I do feel they are happier on the listing side of the business than the buying side. However, a sales manager leading a group of buyer agents works great because the high D is going to demand productivity and achievement, especially if part of their compensation comes from those they are managing. To motivate the high D, keep in mind that they like working on commission. They want the chance to be rewarded for their efforts. They aren't afraid to take the risk. They believe in themselves. And if you want to create a contest to motivate a high D, you need to create one where there are few or preferably only one winner. They won't feel as motivated if everybody gets a prize. Of course, money is always a huge motivator for the high D. You're going to want to give these people as much freedom as possible. And let me just give you a little piece of advice here, though. High Ds don't play by the rule book. Heck, they don't even know there is a rule book. So be sure and outline where the boundaries are if you have a high D on your team, because they tend to do things their own way. Does everybody experience that? Maybe if you're a high D, you got a rule book?
Raejean, I'm wondering, can we just do a quick poll of the
Sure.
audience?
Yeah.
How many of today's, if you're on today, how many of you are a high D? Do you know? Did you take the risk assessment? We did send it out. We sent it to everybody who registered before yesterday. And if you took it, tell us what quadrant you're in. Are you a D, an I, an S, a C? But right now, are you a D? Are you a rainmaker?
And I'm going to call out the Ds because they probably are multitasking right now, and they may not even have heard that question.
So we have a D. Sally says she's a DI, but she's an instructor, so that probably works out really well. A high D, yes.
Yeah.
Mark is multitasking.
Yes, I knew it.
High D, high I. Yeah, it looks like we've got a lot of high Ds and quite a few multitaskers.
I knew it. Yes. When I tell agents when they are doing sales and I'm helping them with their sales, if their client is a high D, I tell them, don't you be late because that's taking advantage of them, and don't you multitask. But just know they might take a phone call or even have somebody, walk up and talk to them during the appointment. So that's what Ds do. And then finally on the screen here, you'll see the last thing is you got to be able to tolerate criticism if you're going to have a high D on your team, because they will have lots of ideas and thoughts about how their way of doing things is better than yours. And I mentioned they're very impatient. So let's move over to the I. Like the Ds, Is are fast-paced and aggressive. So they're going to talk fast just like the D, but you're going to recognize them because you're going to see a lot more gestures, hear more inflection in their voice, and you're going to hear I, me, and my statements. They like to talk about themselves. So high Is are persuasive. The high D will demand you do something while the I will talk you into it. They are gregarious, trusting, relationship-driven name droppers, and they make quick decisions based on emotion. High Is are natural-born salespeople because they are comfortable talking to anyone. These people wing things and usually aren't freaked out by doing so. So be sure and have them role play listing presentations and buyer consultations with you so you know if they're using your system or if they're just simply winging it. That's very important. If you have a high I on your team, you may notice they tend to miss deadlines and details. So you're going to want to help them put in some safety nets and systems. Coaching them on time blocking and prioritizing would be very helpful for them. High I's will jump from one activity to another, and they work quickly and excitedly with others. They are definitely team players, and they dislike being alone. They have a very trusting nature, and they may overestimate other people's abilities, which is something to keep in mind if you put a high I in a management role. I know that I have expected more from people than they were going to give me, and I know that that was my trusting I kicking in. So as far as wants and fears, the high I wants prestige. They want to work for the best company. They want to be the best. They want to look the best, and they fear rejection. So pay attention, you Ds. I want you to hear this. If you are a team leader rainmaker, please be aware that your high I salespeople are looking their biggest fear in the face every day. If you have a brokerage, be sure your front desk and all the staff create a place for your agents that when they walk in the door, they immediately feel like, I'm home, I'm safe, I'm somewhere where I can be supported, and that's going to really help you with retention. The motto for a high I is never waste a crowd. That can be great for rapport building, but sometimes it means that they talk more than they listen. So another coaching point if you have a high I on your team. And if you got a high I salesperson that's working with a high I client, they've got to focus on business. Otherwise, they'll make a lifelong friend but talk right past the close. Been there, done that, got that t-shirt. And the emotion that you're predominantly going to see from the high I is optimism. They are wonderful cheerleaders and everything has potential to them. Very often high I's make great buffers between their high D rainmaker and the rest of the staff. Yes. So how many high I's do we have on the call? As I go on to the suggested rules.
We have a balance between a high D and a high I, and then a high C and a high D.
Really? Okay. It's too bad we can't hear the high I's because instead of the chat box, they'd be going, woo! That's what.
Or they're multitasking.
Oh, yeah. They might be multitasking as well. Okay. So suggested rules for the high I. Again, we have the team leader or rainmaker. Like D's, I's are very fast-paced and aggressive, and they're more proactive than reactive, and they don't mind making quick decisions, so they can fulfill that role very nicely. Buyer specialist is a great fit because the high I's build rapport quickly, and they aren't afraid to start a conversation. And they work well as a showing agent too because they love people, they love spending time with people, and they have the personality that's going to create an experience for our client. To motivate the high I, make sure they have the opportunity to set themselves apart. Offer perks and status symbols, motivate them with emotional appeals, give them freedom and the opportunity to be number one, and be sure to encourage them to set goals that will provide them with the opportunity to be recognized. And really, create a fun environment. High I, we believe that if it's not fun, we're not doing it. So that's very important. Okay, so now I'm really going to try to change my pace, and I'm going to drop down here to the S, which stands for Steadiness. You're going to see I won't be able to do this for very long because this is not my natural pace, but this is more of the pace that you're going to see from the high S and the high C. So high S's are amiable, reserved, non-confrontational, and because they're so non-confrontational, they can be grudge holders. EGADs, yes. A great question to ask when interviewing a high S is, so Callie, when you're under stress and something's bothering you, what do you look like? What will we observe? How would we know you're feeling stress? Now, why do I want to ask that right up front? Because they're not going to show you. They are so non-confrontational, and yet it's important to know when our people are struggling. So I always ask high S those questions. A high S will be supportive, relationship-driven, and a good listener. Oh my goodness. If you're a high S, you may have experienced people that you barely know sitting down and telling you their whole life story. Yes, Callie's nodding. People can just sense that you are warm, caring, and willing to listen. So it happens a lot. The high S wants the status quo. And I believe it's because what they really want is harmony. What they fear is change. So let's think about that for a minute. Having your home on the market, last minute showings, inspectors digging up every little thing on your home, we really need to be aware of how it affects our high-S client, and a high-S client care manager would be able to relate to that very well. They can be great sounding boards and great ears for our clients when they're under stress. Their motto is don't rock the boat. And their emotion, this one's tricky. I'm not even going to try to get you to answer this, Callie.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Their emotion is non-emotion. Remember, they're non-confrontational. They don't show you how they're feeling, which means it's very important that you check in with your high-S team members. Look for signs and encourage them to speak up. You're going to need to create a safe environment. And I know a lot of people, this gets away from them because they're busy, but you really need to hold regular evaluations and give them a platform to share their perspective. It's like with our clients, our high-S clients. If you do something and you lose with your high-S client, it's not like they tell you. They just stop returning your phone calls and your emails, right? Well, we do not want that to happen with a member of our team. And if you're a broker, you certainly don't want that to happen with the agents in your office. So roles for the high-S are those in which they can provide support to others. As a buyer agent, their clients will feel well cared for. Their non-confrontational approach, though, might result in their needing help and asking for the business. So scripts are going to be very important for a high-S. Hitting the phones for lead generation is not going to turn them on, but they would be great at an open house where prospects come to them. Scripts and role play are going to be great for the high-S salesperson. It's going to help them meet their goals. A showing agent actually would be great for exactly the same reasons. Client care and administrative roles work extremely well because your clients are going to sense that they care, and you'll feel that same support if your assistant is a high-S. With that, you're going to want some C in there as well to make sure deadlines aren't missed. Now, here's a little caveat. So if you're a high D and you have a high-S administrative assistant, might their pace drive you a bit crazy? Yep. Aha, yes. So you have to be more patient, Ds. You have to fake it till you make it, and you have to understand what they're bringing to the table, which is the care and the patience that your clients are going to really love. Okay, and finally, we have the high C, which stands for compliance. These are the engineers and accountants of the world, the bean counters. So like the S, they are slower paced and passive, unless you back them in a corner, Callie. I always say if you back a high C into a corner, they are going to come out swinging like a D. And like a D, they are all about results and tasks. They are analytical, correct, rigid, results-driven, cautious, orderly, and they're slow to make a decision, and they base those decisions on data. These folks read consumer report before making a major purchase. What they want is accuracy, and what they fear is criticism. So stop multitasking and listen to this. Be very careful criticizing a high C of their work. Find out up front how they want to receive feedback. You should always correct in private. I mean, that's good advice for everyone, right? Praise in public, correct in private. But particularly for the high C, you can really damage the relationship by criticizing them in public. Their motto is, it's best not to make a decision than to make an uneducated decision. This is good to know for your clients as well. They don't want any answer. They want the exact right answer. And the first emotion you may see from a high C is fear. Roles for the high C include anything where they can dig into data. If accuracy and perfectionism counts, then they will be all in. The trick is helping them not fall into that analysis paralysis trap where they want the mailing or the presentation to be so perfect that they never quite finish it, right? Bookkeeper, no-brainer, absolutely. Transaction coordinator, designated broker or managing broker, and in most administrative roles, we want to see the C at the midline or at least close to it. So, any questions on the high C, Callie?
Not yet.
All right, so we're going to move on. This is the most important slide of the presentation. So have you ever had a person that just bugs you? I mean, maybe there's no real reason. They didn't do anything. You just don't get them and you don't like them. Well, sometimes we have the biggest problems with the people who are on the diagonal from us. So let's look at the differences between the high D and the high S. Ds are direct and S's are non-confrontational. Ds are demanding and the S is reserved and usually appears quite shy. Ds make quick decisions and S will take their time making a decision. The D wants to conquer and the S wants to help. The poor S doesn't even show their own emotions and the D will hit the S with their anger first. Can you see that if you're leading a team member or you're having a touchy conversation with a client and you're a high D talking to an S, that you may want to adjust your natural tendencies? Yes, you absolutely do. So how do we do that? Well, in this case, I think the D would speak more slowly. He or she would make sure they are in a non-threatening posture. Ds usually like to lean in and be very intense. They would ask more questions rather than making direct statements, and they would definitely want to mirror and match the tonality and the gestures of the high S. And it can be the same thing if you're an S working with a high D. You can imagine in the reverse that it could be so frustrating for a D to sit through a slow-paced, passive meeting with somebody they can't get a read on, right? And we have the same types of extreme differences between the I and the C. And yet, when you're a high D, you want to bring steadiness to your business. When you're a high I, you want to bring in that analytical person to your business. And so it doesn't happen by accident. You have to understand what the other person is bringing to the table so that you have that patience. Having a basic knowledge of the DISC is important for your salespeople. You can use these notes to explain to them the differences and how they can inadvertently lose with a client if they don't modify their natural tendencies to match their client or prospect. That's why this last slide is my favorite. I think it illustrates the differences so well. Encourage them to adapt their behavior a little bit to get different results. For instance, if a high I wings it like they naturally do when answering a question for a high C, like what is the average days on market for our neighborhood, and the high I answers, it's about 60 to 80 days. The high C will think the I doesn't know what they're doing and that they're always going to guess at data. That is a super big no-no for a high C. It would be far better for the high I to say, let me check your specific neighborhood and get that answer for you as soon as I'm back in the office. I would not want to guess at that. That's language that a high C understands and appreciates. If it works with your client care or administrative staff as well, when working with a high D seller, it would look like this. So high Ds, Kelly, do not want you to bring them problems. Have you experienced that with high Ds? They don't want you to bring them problems. They only want you to bring them solutions. They value efficiency and results. So let's say the WIR shows live infestation for termites. You would never call the D and say, hi, Mr. Smith, looks like we have termites on your property. You're going to need to take care of that. Now, I know nobody on this call would say that, but here's a better script. Hi, Mr. Smith, the termite report shows we have a live infestation. I'm sending over 2 bids for treatment. Would you like to choose one and get this taken care of, or would you like one more bid? So you're offering him solutions and you're saving him time by already having multiple bids. And using the words like get this taken care of and move on, that is D speak. That's what they want to do.
So not a lot of fluffy words.
No fluff.
No, it's just the bullet points. This is what you've got. This is what I see. Here's the solution.
Here's the solution. We don't have to worry about it. Make a choice, and we're going to move on to the next thing. That's what Mr. D wants to hear. And gosh, I could go on and on with tips about personality-based selling. But if you're not currently educating your sales and admin team, I found that it takes just a little bit of practice, and you start just by identifying the 4 styles. And if you start talking DISC from the point that they're hired, it really helps. Use their style as the starting point and then ask them to act as if they are a different style, or ask them to pretend like they're speaking to their opposite style. It's amazing how easy it is to pick it up, and I think it may be because we all can name someone we know closely in all 4 quadrants, right? I mean, as I was going through that, Callie, could you not think of someone in every single one of those quadrants?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm sure that everyone on today's webinar, as soon as you said, have you ever come across somebody who just drives you crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, we have 150 people going, yes, you know, they absolutely can.
That's why they're on the diagonal. And guess what? You're driving them crazy. So just modifying your behavior a little bit and giving them what they want can make all the difference and change that whole dynamic. So here's an easy way to remember it. I love this. The D will take you to war. The I will wonder what color the uniforms are. The S will ask, how will we take care of the wounded? And the C will have the battle plan. So we need all four in our business. We do. If you haven't taken the disc, there are many options online. There are even free assessments. I do all of mine when I'm hiring. I send everybody to the Abelson Group assessments, and their website is on the screen. So I'm open to any questions.
I want to talk a little bit about what we talked about before we started the webinar.
Oh.
This is on point. And Raejean was talking about 2 of the 4 quadrants are very task-oriented.
Yes.
And these are the people that you really want doing your numbers. And then 2 of them are face-to-face.
Yes.
So I really would like you, if you don't mind, going back and just touching on that. It's very specific.
Okay.
And I was just sitting here like with my jaw on the ground going, wow, that just makes so much sense.
It does make so much sense. So if everybody takes that same 4 quadrant with the D, the I, the S, and the C, right? So the D and the C, the D's on top, the C's below it, the I's to the right, the S is below it. So we're gonna look at it like this. So remember, the D's and the I's are very fast-paced and they're aggressive. And so write this at the top by the D and the I. Their motto for lead generation is, I go get them. I go get them. Whereas the C and the S, so at the bottom of the page, I want you to write their motto for lead generation, and that is, they come to me. Right? Totally 2 different things. The D and the C are they're tasky. They like tasky things where they can get results, and they like to do things in high volume of numbers. So write that on the left-hand side by the D and the C. And then over on the I and the S, they love people. So you can write face-to-face over by the I and the S. And so I was asking Callie, I said, so if we look at lead generation, preferred lead generation, because what we do easily is what we do best. That's our natural entrepreneurial style. So what is the lead generation for the D if we know that it's I go get them and it's tasky and we can do it in a high volume? And she was brilliant. She said, prospecting. And I'm like, right. So write down prospecting. We can call expireds, for sale by owners, sphere. We can cold call you, and we can do circle prospecting, right? So we wrote all that down. Then we went over to the I, and the I is also I go get them, but it's more face-to-face. So some of the preferred lead gen for an I that meets that criteria is networking. I've never known an I that couldn't go to a party and dig out a couple of leads. Networking and even door knocking. They love it. And then if we drop down to the S and the C, where their motto is they come to me, and I think of an S who likes face-to-face, but the leads are going to come to them. What is that look like? What is it, Kelly?
Well, let's ask. So
okay.
If you have an agent in your office who doesn't want to pick up the phone and constantly make calls, but they want the leads to come to them, but they also excel at that face-to-face. So where are these people going to be? What do you think?
Any ideas? All right, I'm going to give them the answer.
Give it to
Open
them.
houses, right? They can go set up shop.
Yes.
Did somebody get it?
Sally got it.
Good job,
Yes.
Sally. You got it. Yes. So S's, if I were hiring an S to my team or to my brokerage, I would really encourage them to do 4 or 5 open houses every single day. And then the C, let's look at the C. The C is they come to me, but it's tasky. It's not face-to-face. So they usually excel at web leads and farming. Somebody just made a comment. Did they guess at that too?
Blogging.
Blogging. Yeah, there you go. That's more relationship-based. That might fall over on the S, but yeah, that's a good one. So here's the deal. Here's what I want you to look at. Look at the D, right? Prospecting, phone calls. How much does that cost you guys just to sit down and start cranking out the phone calls. What does that cost? Costs nothing, right? How quickly can you get results from that? You could get an immediate result. You call for long enough, I guarantee you, you're going to get an appointment. Let's drop down. So low cost, immediate results. Now let's drop down to the C quadrant. They're focusing on web leads and farming. How much does that cost? Oh my goodness, that is expensive. Web leads and farming is expensive. And how quickly can you get results? I know some of the best people working their farms tell me you have to plan on doing it consistently for 18 months. And we know that web leads, buyers and sellers, are going on the web a good 22, 24 months before they ever close on a property. So if you are a high C in this business, or you have a high C on your team, or you're hiring a high C to your brokerage, make sure they understand that what they're going to want to focus on, they can get results, but they better have some reserve. And honestly, they better be willing to step out of their comfort zone at least a little bit, an hour a day, do one of these other activities where they can get faster results. So that's what I shared with Callie.
I think that's incredible. This website, they just go on ablesongroup.com/assessments. Is there a login or anything there?
You can purchase assessments there. I have an account there, so I don't have to go through any of that again. But okay. Yeah, there's a place there on the left-hand side. I think it says purchase an assessment or take an assessment. Yeah.
And I will send out the email that I sent a couple of days ago that gave the Ableson Group, and then it also gave a link to, I think it's like 123test.com, and they also do free assessments. So that'll be able to help you as well. So here is Raejean contact information, Realtor, Talent Scout, Coach, and she does have a ton, I mean years, decades, and she doesn't even look like she's over 25. I gotta tell you.
I love you.
She's absolutely beautiful, but 20 years of coaching top producers.
Yes, so, I've learned so much. That was more of a gift to me than anything. I mean, all over the country, from Manhattan to California. It's been wonderful.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So the best way to reach you?
Yep. My cell is on the screen, 602-350-1967. My brother says that's a good year. He was born that year.
I would agree.
And then, and then the email that I use when I'm working as a talent scout to hire is growingourteam@gmail.com.
On your cell phone, voice calls, texts?
Both, either
or?
I'm very easy to get a hold of.
Excellent. And I got to tell you, working with you has just been such a pleasure.
Thank you.
You respond so quickly.
Thank you.
And proficiently. And so, folks, what do you think? Should we have Raejean back for a second webinar, maybe a series?
Oh, that would
How to
be
use
great.
the disc for buyers and sellers,
Yeah.
and maybe the top 10 things we should know.
Absolutely.
Something.
And maybe even for administrative staff, so they can better deal with clients and increase referrals and repeat business. There's a ton of stuff we could do.
Wow, yeah. Did you hear that? Repeat business, referrals. RJ, do you help recruit agents to brokerages? Now wait, before she answers this, I'm going to tell you that I asked her this question, and I was so impressed with the care and specificity that you use in helping place agents with brokerages.
Oh. So
you use the disc, you talk to them, you meet with them.
Oh, yes.
And then after you meet with them and get a good feel with them, how do you?
Oh, I have a very systematic process that I never deviate from, which is much easier for me to stick to than you, because you have a need, you want somebody in there, you're feeling the stress of not having somebody. I don't feel any of that. I work with a client and we come up with a like a missing persons report. I want to be able to know who I'm looking for immediately when I see them, and so I have a series of questions that I ask until that person is, I can picture them standing in front of me. And then I start my search. I also give the client a script to use at the end of every phone call, because warm leads from people they trust are the best.
Sure.
But then, of course, I advertise. I never deviate. I disc test them. I speak to them 2 or 3 times before I ever introduce them to the agent. And I have to tell you, I have a very strong intuition, and I use that a lot. And I think everybody could do that if they didn't have the need. I'm not feeling the pain, so I can really make sure we're hiring who we said we were going to hire, and we're not making any exceptions just because.
You're not emotionally involved.
Exactly.
You're not feeling the stress of, I've got to take care of this.
Right.
You're specifically looking for the black and white fit.
Yes, this is a fit or this is not a fit. And if it's, it's just easier. If I'm more of a shopper than a buyer. Most high Ds, they're buyers. Somebody sits in front of them and fogs a mirror, and they can start immediately. You're hired. Yeah. So that's been very helpful.
That makes sense. So, and if you want more information on, teaming up with Raejean or the type of coaching that she can do specifically for you, for your agents, definitely reach out to her. Send her a quick email. Say, hey, I listened to you on the webinar. Would love more information. And she will definitely respond. And I can guarantee it. Like on Facebook where it says how fast somebody responds, well, hers would be like minutes. Thank you so much. For our list of all of our upcoming webinars, feel free to visit our calendar. Our web recorded webinars are on our website. Raejean, let's wrap it all up, put a bow on it, bring it home. Closing remarks.
Closing remarks. I hope that I went pretty fast. That was a lot of information. Definitely, like Callie said, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. But just practice this. Practice it on your spouse. Practice it on your kids. You'll pick it up so easily. You're going to be amazed. All you have to do is, if you're talking to a high I and you can think that your sister's a high I, just think to yourself, how would she want to best hear this from me? It really is super simple. I cannot stress enough how easy this is. You guys will be teaching this webinar next time. It's that simple.
But it sounds like maybe it would also be great for like a monthly sales meeting.
Yes.
Invite all the agents to the meeting.
Yes.
And give them the disc and sit down and go through it with them.
Right.
This is what you are, this is what I am, but how to talk to people, how to relate.
Absolutely.
Or, and if we realize that not everybody thinks the way we do, what's the best way to serve them?
Right. Absolutely.
If we're all in this together, we're all on the same team, we all have the common goal.
Right.
This is what we need to do to better serve each other to get along.
And to get better results.
And get more profits and more close deals. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, Raejean, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
We appreciate it. And guys, of course, look for any information that I can do for you. Just send me a quick email. And we look forward to seeing you on the flip side. Have a great day.